All right, I want to talk about the hardest thing I've ever had to do as a mother or period. Like, I think marriage is so difficult and nobody really, I don't know if people talk about it, but I find that marriage in itself is difficult. And it's because you have different people coming from different backgrounds with their own energies or what have you. They come together to start this new life together. And it's a challenge. But beyond that, I think the hardest thing I've ever had to do is breastfeeding. I have been breastfeeding for 6 years straight right now. I'm going on seven and with baby number three. So when people say, oh, when you breastfeed, you typically don't get pregnant, that is a lie because I got pregnant both times while I was still breastfeeding. So, yeah, today I just want to talk about breastfeeding and what my experience has been and some of the latest statistics and why you should consider breastfeeding your baby if you are not. So, guess what I found? As of 2025, February, and this is the US. And unfortunately, for most of us, this data translates beyond because even on the continent of Africa now, where breastfeeding was very common, South America, I think those are the two largest populations that breastfeed. Now, these numbers are drastically dropping. But this is what it says. As of 2021, this data is based on 2021. 84.1% of infants that are born are breastfed, like at the initial state, right? And then 59.8% of these infants are still breastfed at 12 months. It's 39% if you're talking about exclusively breastfed. And then if you're looking at kids that are breastfed exclusively up to 3 months, it's only 46.5%. If we're talking about 6 months, it's 27.2%. Like if you're looking at kids that are breastfed up to 12 months, it's more like 10%. And exclusively breastfed babies is approximately 81% globally, but only 25% if we're looking at the United States. I thought pregnancy was difficult. I found it challenging to some extent. And if you've ever been pregnant with fibroids, you know that there's a lot of fears and worries and pains in random places, cramps, bleeding for some women. Some end up on bed rest and all these things that come with pregnancy. Um, with my first child, I had a cesarean. So a C section is tough. And maybe that added to it because a lot of the data shows that women that give birth through cesarean tend to have a harder time with breastfeeding initially. And partly is because their milk doesn't come through as quickly as a naturally born. And when I say naturally, I meant vaginally born baby. Why is that? Because the hormone release is different. When you give birth vaginally, your body knows that you gave birth and your body releases the right hormones that would allow you to build the milk. So typically, your milk will come in within 3 days. If you had a C section, your body doesn't always know that you already had the baby because your body is not aware, like everything is not synced. This baby was pulled out outside of the natural process. So it tends to affect the health of the baby and also the health of the mother. That's why you find that most kids that are born through cesarean tend to have respiratory issues or immune issues. Like they have more problems, and it's because they don't go through the vaginal canal. I had my baby, and immediately he latched. So I didn't have an issue with latching like most mothers would. Or I didn't think I had an issue with latching, but Lord, the amount of pain that came through when this baby started. First, the first 3 days were hell because you had no milk coming in, right? So you don't have milk, and your baby is starving. Your baby is hungry, and your baby is trying to eat. So they're trying as best as they can to pull whatever they're getting. And colostrum is just so little. Even though the baby's tummy is tiny, the baby needs to stay latched. If you've had a cesarean, you're exhausted, you're in pain, you have so much going on, your brain is not even functioning. You're trying to sleep, you can't sleep. The lights are going on every 2 minutes. The doctors are, or nurses are in and out of your room trying to get vitals. Like, there's so much going on with you, right? And all you want is just a moment of peace. Like, you just want to close your eyes for 10 minutes. But you really can't, because this baby keeps screaming and this baby wants to eat. But there's not a lot for the baby to eat. Day one goes through, day two goes through, and day three comes through, and the milk starts to come a little bit. I mean, their tummy is like the size of a peanut. Okay, so it's not like they need a lot of food. But when you're in the hospital, they're telling you you need to give them this many ounces of milk, and you need to give them every 2 hours, 3 hours, or what have you. So you have all of these people in your ear telling you what you're supposed to be doing. And then you have this baby that is yelling at you because they want to eat. It was hard. Finally, the milk comes through, the baby's latching, and then you have this problem with, oh, I don't think they're latching well because they're making noises. They say they're not supposed to, and then you're supposed to hold this baby a certain way, and you're not, as a first time mom, especially, you don't even know the right way to hold a baby because, ah, God. And then you have this big problem of either getting too gorged, like your milk. Now you went from I'm not making milk to the milk is leaking everywhere. And then you have all these nipple, like, I remember when my baby would latch and I would bust into tears because my nipples had all these cracks. And then they sell all these nipple balms or whatever they call it. And then they give you this um, breast gauge, or I don't remember what it's called, that you're supposed to put so that you can protect it so your baby just gets the milk without really latching so hard. I don't know, that didn't help. And the bombs didn't help. Nothing was helping. This thing is cracked, it's literally bleeding. When my baby latches, I feel like my soul is leaving my body. I swear, I'm not kidding. Like, it was so painful. I thought it was more painful than the cesarean pain that I'm dealing with. Like, it was so, so painful. And I wish someone told me how it was going to feel. And so I understand when mothers give up, and then you don't have both breasts producing the same milk, right? I had lumps in one breast, first of all. I've always had this thing forever. I mean, it's not plenty, but I don't know if it affects my milk production or anything. And you don't know if you're making enough for the baby. One of the things in my head was the fact that at least I kept telling myself my body will give my baby what it needs. And then everybody tells you to pump. I think I have PTSD. I tried pumping. I I truly tried. Those pumps were so painful. They were equally, if not more so, than the baby latching. So I hated the pumps. I had the Modella. I don't know if there's any difference with the different pumps. I hated the pump. I was like, I'm not doing this. I can't do this. And I would rather have the manual pump. It still hurts, but it was a little better. Like I did better with the manual pump. So I would pump sometimes. I worked full time, mind you. So during the first 6 weeks when I was home, it was okay. No, my job gave me 12 weeks. So I had 12 weeks. It was okay. All I did for these 12 weeks, and I'm so grateful because I'm better off than a lot of other women. All I did for 12 weeks was eat and breastfeed. Like this baby, I just wake up in the morning, sit on the couch, and hold the baby. And all we did was eat. Whenever he felt like it, so I ate, I fed him on demand. And when he would sleep, I would try to sleep, or I would try to pump when he's resting. And um, yeah, that's all I did because I didn't want to use any formula. So I was I was in so much pain. For the first 3 to 6 months, if I was an average person, I would have given up. Let me just put it that way. Like, I understand why women just give up or they feel like they're not producing enough because the hospitals tell you you need to you need to feed the baby this many ounces every few hours. If you're breastfeeding directly, you don't know how much the baby's eating. So that's why most women feel pressured to pump so they can measure how much milk to feed the baby. And I had fears that maybe I wasn't making enough milk, but the baby was growing. That's how you know if your baby is getting enough food. You know, are they gaining weight? So my baby was gaining weight, but I felt like, was I really making enough milk? I didn't know. I had all these milk cookies that I was eating. I was drinking all this porridge, oatmeal, like everything they say to help milk make milk. And then sometimes I would have this, I felt like mastitis or this pain. Like it's so much pain. I only remember pain, guys, with breastfeeding. The first few months, all I remembered was the pain. And then I would tell my mother, oh my God, how come you didn't tell me about what and how painful this is? And I will talk to every friend that I had. Like, what is going on? How come I didn't realize that breastfeeding was so painful? And everybody would say, oh, yeah, it is. Oh, yeah, I had this experience. So women are going through these things, but they're not talking about it for some reason. And if they were, I missed the memo because I am this miss. I just want the best for my child, and I know I can do this, and I'm strong, so I can handle this. No, I was weak. I was crying. I was in pain, and I was praying every day. And I remember when one boob would be so sore, and I wouldn't want to feed the baby off of that because the nipple was so bad. And I would always hear my mother tell me, if you don't feed him, that milk will dry up and you won't be able to feed the baby. So, no matter what I was dealing with, I was like, I cannot allow my milk to dry up. And I don't want to just feed off of one breast in the future. So, I didn't want one to dry up. So, I muster all the courage and pray to all the ancestors, the gods, like whoever I can pray to help me get through the worst of those days. And I am here to testify that they do pass. And that's the essence of this video, that it's worth it. That all these stories you read about how formulas are equally or better are not true. that breastfeeding is the best gift you can give yourself and your baby. So, in this video, I'm going to share some of the benefits of breastfeeding for mommy and baby. And I hope that even though I'm telling you that it's not easy, that's going to be hard, that it's going to test you in more ways than you ever thought possible, that is going to challenge every bit of who you are, that you can do this. Because I'm telling you, if I survived, in tears, mind you, if I survived, you got this. You can do it. You can do it. So, what's the number one most important thing about breastfeeding that I want you to learn and I want you to take home? And I want you to use that as your what's the word? Your foundation, your baseline, the reason why, your default setting. This is why you should breastfeed your baby, even when you think you cannot, even when you feel like you don't have the power, the ability, the capacity. If even when you think nothing is working in your favor right now, it's like the devil, your village people, the angels, everybody is ganging up against you. This baby wants to take you out. Trust me, you're doing the Lord's work. So when they call it liquid gold, this is why breast milk is liquid gold, because it takes everything to produce it. So if one drop does not land in your baby's mouth and lands on the floor, you want to cry because you know what it took for you to make every single drop of this milk. Why is it important for the baby? Immunity. I've been breastfeeding for 6 solid years. Six, six, and I'm on number 7. I'm almost 7 years of breastfeeding non-stop. Like I get pregnant, I breastfeed through pregnancy, and when the new baby comes, I tandem feed for a little bit. I get rid of this one baby and then I focus on the new. Like this is how it's been. Or a month or two before the baby is due, I wean the baby and then I continue on with the next baby. So I have been breastfeeding throughout. And it has taught me a lot about resilience, strength, patience, understanding, forgiveness, love. I mean, name it. Because, first off, I remember when I used to say, I'm not breastfeeding any babies because I want to keep my breasts looking nice. Now, I don't even know what I have left. There's no breast. It's just, um, I don't know, a milk jug. That's all it is. So, there's no, oh, save your breast for your husband. Why are you giving this to the baby? And do you know how important it is to breastfeed beyond 3 months, 6 months, 9 months? I breastfeed. I have not breastfed any child for less than 2 years. So that's why I'm at 6. Because each year, my firstborn is 6 years old. So, each child, I have 2 year gaps with each child. So each child has been breastfed for at least 2 years, 2.5 years before the next baby comes. And I find it to be the most rewarding thing I can do for my children, the best thing I can give them, at least that money can't buy, beyond the fact that it is way cheaper. Like God gave you food for your baby that's not costing you $30, $50. Like each time I see how much formula costs, I don't know how people can afford it. You're going through a can of formula once a week, twice a week, sometimes 3 times a week. And I'm like, how are you paying for this thing? So that's one incentive right there, if nothing else. But the most important incentive is immunity. Babies that are breastfed have better cognitive development and better IQ. Okay. I'm not bragging, but my kids are super intelligent. And everywhere we go, people make reference to the fact that they are so smart. And I credit that to breastfeeding. None of my kids has any allergies. I credit that to to breastfeeding. My kids, I've never had to. I've never given them any antibiotics. I've never given them any steroids. They've never had issues with any severe infections. Um, I haven't landed in the hospital with any major. I mean, I've had here and there. My son has had issues. I'm not saying my kids never get sick. They get a cold like any other child or any other person, rather, but they've never had any major complications. And I think their health is credited to breast milk. That's my thought. Because I don't do anything spectacular. I try to feed them healthy, yes. But for the most part, it's breastfeeding. So we're talking about IQ. We have a lot of studies that show, you know, kids that are breastfed have less chances of SIDS, which is the sudden infant death. Um, there's a lot of things associated with that. Kids that are given formula, most times, well, I don't necessarily agree with it, but this is the guideline. The guideline says when you give baby your food, like babies are supposed to be put on their back, right? So you lay your baby on their back. Most times it's shown that kids that are given formula tend to have more of a choking episode because digestion of formula is a lot harder on the system compared to milk. Most kids can handle milk better than they can handle formula. So they tend to choke, and that is what often leads to the sudden infant death, right? So having a baby on breast milk decreases that chance. Doesn't eliminate nothing. There's no guarantees or 100% on anything. It just decreases the chance of SID. And other benefit is I've talked about digestion. You don't have a lot of digestive issues with breastfed babies. I don't ever have worries with my kids not eating or wanting to eat because their body has learned over time. And I think because I breastfeed for a long time, and most times I exclusively breastfeed for 6 months for sure. And then I try to introduce a few foods typically, but I don't necessarily introduce food to my kids till after 9 months. That has been my standard for the most part. Like I might introduce a few fruits here and there or some kind of milk, and by milk I mean coconut or almond or walnut, like those nuts. I would milk them and give them to the baby. Um, those are standard. Like I don't feed them typical foods. I might, put my finger in their mouth so that they can learn the taste and stuff and start developing the enzymes for digestion of these foods. But I don't introduce a lot of foods to them until after about 9 months. So I think that helps tremendously. So, digestion, risk of death, risk of chronic diseases. Most kids that are breastfed over time, studies show that they have lower risk of chronic diseases. And we're talking about obesity, diabetes, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, you know, all these things tend to be decreased when the baby is breastfed, especially for a longer period of time. And the last thing is brain development. Breastfed babies tend to have better brain development or cognitive function. That's why they have better IQs. They have better brain development over time. So, if for nothing else, think of these values. And I know this is not about shaming anybody. I've seen mothers that um, do both. They supplement with formula here and there, or mothers that feel like, especially in that beginning stage where, oh yeah, the milk is not coming, I don't think my milk is coming through, or my baby is hungry, so I need to just feed them. It's part of the development, guys. Your body is not supposed to produce so much milk from day one. That's one. And two, your baby's tummy is so tiny. You don't need to start overfeeding them or um, dumping so much food into their very tiny tummy at this young age. This idea that they need this many ounces of milk or formula from day one, I am dispelling that narrative. Like, it's a myth. Your baby will eat as much as they need to eat. I believe that. And your body is going to produce according to what your baby needs. What do I mean by that? I mean, if you try, because I know everybody's situation is different, you might have a challenge with being able to do this. But say you're home or you have the opportunity to be home for a period of time. What you should do is baby led feeding. Like, allow the baby to eat as they need to eat. Don't time your child and say, oh, it's 2 o'clock, it's time for your next meal. No, like, even as adults, excuse me, one of the reasons why we are dealing with obesity and we're overeating is because we're like, oh, it's 8 o'clock, I haven't had my breakfast yet. Let me go eat. If you're not hungry, don't eat. Don't just eat just because you feel like you should be eating, because you think it's time to eat. Feed your baby when your baby is asking for food. When your baby is hungry, believe me, they will remind you that they're there and they need their food. So instead of you to rush and start feeding your child, just allow your baby to tell you when they're hungry and feed your baby. And if your baby wants to eat for 30 minutes, let your baby eat for 30 minutes. Don't say, oh, okay, 5 minutes here, 5 minutes here. Okay, it's time. You need to go. No, they might not eat for 6 hours and then now they want to eat for 30 minutes. Let them. They might not eat for 8 hours. They would sleep for 10 hours. I'm not going to go wake my baby up to go feed them because it's been 3 hours. No, I let you sleep for 10 hours if you need to sleep for 10 hours. When you wake up, you're going to call me for food and I will sit and let you eat until you have enough to your satisfaction. And never believe that you're not making enough, because you are making enough. Your baby will determine how much your body makes. If your baby eats 12 ounces, your body would know, I need to make 12 ounces of milk because this baby needs 12 ounces. But if your baby only needs six, your body will make only six. But if you're pumping excessively, what it does is it sends the wrong signal. It tells your body that you need 50 ounces. So you're making all this milk that your baby doesn't really need. And now you're stockpiling it and piling and filling up your freezer. And that milk in the freezer, I'm sorry, it's not the same as you directly breastfeeding. If you need to, you know, pump some milk here and there, you have to go to work and you need to pump because you need to sleep and your uh, spouse needs to feed the baby, I understand. But when you have milk in the freezer for 3 months, 6 months, you're just collecting hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of ounces of milk. I don't think it's necessary. You're putting too much stress on your body. You're putting too much pressure on yourself. It's hard enough to sit and breastfeed for 15 minutes. Why are you pumping for 3 hours, 6 hours on average in a day? You don't need to do that to yourself. I promise you, you really don't. What are the benefits to you as a mother? As a mother, breastfeeding helps you with postpartum healing. Okay, it's really difficult to even recognize yourself after you have a baby. Sometimes you don't know what you're going through, but what that would do is it stimulates your body to produce oxytocin, which is the happy hormone. It helps you relax, it reduces the risk of postpartum depression, it gives you the opportunity to bond with your baby, it makes you like that baby more than you would have if you don't have this opportunity to just sit and hold the baby. That is the intended design. You are designed to keep your baby close to you when you have that baby because it helps your body produce the right hormones. It helps you with weight loss. A lot of women, after they have a baby and they breastfeed that baby, they're able to drop back to their normal pre pregnancy weight. For me, that has been very instrumental. I today weigh the same as I did um, before I had any child. I've had 3 kids in the past 6 years, like I said, and I still weigh the same. And I think it's because I breastfed for 6 years. Now, by the time I win this last baby, we can talk. I might gain 50 pounds, but in the meantime, no, these babies have been able to keep me maintaining my weight. And Another wonderful benefit is there's a reduced risk of breast and cervical cancer when you breastfeed because, again, it releases the correct hormones. It allows your body to um, regulate your hormones, and it also helps your body to understand what hormones are needed, because what one of the problems we tend to have is the dysregulation, and dysregulation happens more than often because your body is getting mixed signals. Are we pregnant or are we not? Do we have the baby? Do we not? What's going on? We had the baby, but then now we need to release all these hormones out of the body, but there's no outlet. All the things your body is designed to do, you're choosing not to do it because of whatever societal factors are convincing you that that's not the path. Or more than that, it's not even about that. It's about the stressors. Like, you're so busy, you're working full time. I mean, I know what that's like because I used to work 12 hours and be breastfeeding. And then I would be in the office in the little uh, uh, mother room, or what they call the breastfeeding room, pumping for 15 minutes during my break, rushing to get back to work. You don't get time to go pump. You use your lunch break to go pump. You use your breaks to go pump. You're constantly like you don't have a break. You know, it's very stressful on your body. So, if you don't breastfeed, your body doesn't get that opportunity to try and balance your hormone. I'm not saying my hormones are perfect today. I'm saying I've seen an improvement because I've had hormonal imbalance. I've talked about this in previous videos. Hormonal imbalance has been a part of my journey. However, I've seen an improvement compared to maybe 10 years ago when I have not had kids and I haven't gone through this long, prolonged breastfeeding. There's a reduced risk of type 2 diabetes because you have better glycemic index. You have an opportunity for your body to regulate your sugar. Okay. It lowers the risk of any uh, insulin related challenges because it improves your insulin sensitivity. I don't know how else to explain that. I mean, you can't beat that. Who needs insulin insensitivity? I mean, insulin insensitivity. I can't speak. Um, I have spoken about the weight loss and also the emotional bonding that takes place. So, in a nutshell, what am I saying? Please, I beg you, I beg you, and I beg you. I know it's not fun. I know it's not exciting. I know that the society has given us so many options that makes life so much better, in quotes. I always say better in quotes. You know, there are so many things you could do to avoid the stress of being a breastfeeding mother. But what I can tell you is, for your child, this gift you will never be able to take back. This is a lifelong gift that it's it's the gift you can give them that they would be able to pass on to their children, because healthier parents make healthier babies. By breastfeeding your child, you're making your child a healthier adult. And in turn, you're helping the next generation. Please do not allow society to convince you that there is no value, and do not allow convenience and just a piece of, oh, I just want my, I don't know how women do it. I've heard of it. Oh, we run shifts. My husband breastfeeds at night and I get to sleep, or he breastfeed, I'm saying breastfeed, sorry. My husband gets to feed the baby, so I need formula because I don't need to be bothered. Like, I've heard moms say, I can't be bothered with this. It's just too much work. It is. I'm not denying it. but it's worth it. Do it for your child. We have been losing, and we are still losing the next generation. Mental health. This is the first generation ever in the history of generations. This generation is the first generation of people where the children are sicker than their parents. It has never existed before. This is unprecedented. Never in the history of humanity is a child sicker than the parent. We need to take responsibility. We are not doing our jobs, and we need to call ourselves to the table. We have to talk to each other and say, Mom, I love you, and I'm looking at you straight in the face, and I'm telling you the truth because nobody is telling you the truth, especially us, Black women, African women. We have sick children. Autism is destroying our communities. ADHD, your children are dealing with emotional distress. Your children are dealing with all kinds of learning disabilities, all kinds of problems everywhere you turn. We keep telling ourselves that it's not me. You, my dear, have a role to play in this. And I hate to be the one to tell you. I hate to make it sound like it's all your fault. It's not all your fault. You didn't know any better. And now I'm here to tell you. I've studied the research. I studied all my public health studies. I know the indices. And I'm telling you, because the data is there if you would look. You can never replace breast milk with anything else. Nothing is more valuable than breast milk for your child. And that singular act is going to save you from running to the emergency room, urgent care, doctor's office, and it's going to save your child in the future. Get rid of those things. Cow's milk are for cows. You're not raising a calf. You don't need to be feeding cow's milk to a baby human. A baby human is not a ton. They're only 5 pounds, 10 pounds. They don't need all of that. You don't need to dump all those hormones in your little child. Stop doing your babies a disservice. We are hurting the next generation because we want convenience and because society says we both need to go to work. I've made this video about this. Listen, you had a baby. It's not your responsibility to be paying mortgage. You need to figure out to downsize if you need to, so you don't have as much bills, so you can be present and be able to breastfeed your child. And then once the babies are old enough, you can go back to your regular job. I took a break from pharmacy, but guess what? I have my license. I can always be a pharmacist. You will never take away my knowledge. But once my baby is 10, I can never bring them back to being 6 months old. I can't fix it. My friend was telling me today about one of her patients that came in with their daughter. The daughter is 2.5 years old. And that daughter had a high fever. And the mom had to go to work. So she dropped the baby with the dad and told the dad to take the baby to urgent care, to the hospital, because she runs an urgent care clinic. And the dad was busy running errands, and they said, oh, they gave the baby some Tylenol, and the baby went to sleep, and he went about running his own errands. And then he went to work, and mommy went to work. They came home, baby is dead. We're so busy, and this is their only child. And they've been trying, they've had miscarriages. They have been trying to conceive, and they finally got this one baby, but they were too busy trying to keep up with societal standards that they lost the one child. And now they have to start over again and cross their fingers and hope that they get another chance at parenting. Imagine the hurt, the pain, the guilt you're going to live with if that was you. We need to change, guys. Have you had similar story as me with breastfeeding? Was it fun and easy for you, or did you have to go through it? Because I did. Share your story. Let's inspire and encourage other mothers. Tell me why you think it's important to breastfeed or why you think it's not. And what strategies have helped you get through this whole hump so that you were able to thrive and succeed. What would you advise other young mothers or other mothers that are trying or considering breastfeeding and they're having a difficult time? Let's help each other evolve. Let's be better parents, better wives, better mothers, and better parents at large. I appreciate you. If you made it to the end of this video, I thank you. I wish you the best and I wish you success in your breastfeeding journey. I wish and I pray and I hope that you understand that you have the mantle, the power is in your hands. Don't let anybody or anyone else take that away from you. I love you and I wish you the best. Cheers.